Peace is not a place you find. It's a person you become. There's a moment in life, quiet, unremarkable, when you realize that peace isn't waiting for you out there. It's not hiding in some future version of success. It's not sealed inside a perfect morning routine or in the hands of someone who finally understands you. It's not behind the next job title, relationship, or escape. No, real peace doesn't come from what you add to your life. It comes from what you're willing to remove. The noise, the need to prove, the fear of falling behind, the stories you tell yourself about who you should be. Peace, the Stoics believed, is not a destination. It's a decision, one that's made not once, but moment by moment, in silence, in discomfort, and often in solitude. In this video, we'll explore 13 things you can begin to eliminate, not to become someone new, but to finally uncover who you've been all along. Each one is rooted in ancient wisdom, sharpened by modern truth, and meant to bring you back to that quiet strength within. So if you're tired of chasing, of performing, of feeling like your calm depends on everything going right, stay with this, because peace isn't found. It's built, deliberately, and always from the inside out. 1. Complaining, the thief of power. There's a quiet moment, often unnoticed, when a complaint begins forming in the back of your mind. It starts small, a sigh, a thought, a whispered "why me?" And before you know it, your day, your energy, your mood, all bend around what's wrong. Complaining feels good, for a second. It gives the illusion of control, a vent, a release. But slowly, it becomes something more dangerous. A habit, a mindset, a way of interpreting life through the lens of lack. The Stoics warned of this trap. They didn't waste time blaming the rain, the crowds, the people who didn't meet their expectations. Why? Because they understood something we often forget. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Complaining shifts your energy from agency to helplessness. It turns every inconvenience into a personal injustice. And worst of all, it teaches your brain that unless everything goes your way, you don't have the power to respond. But you do. You always do. When something goes wrong, ask, is this within my control? If yes, act. If not, accept. And redirect your attention inward, where your real influence lives. Because every complaint is a fork in the road. One path spirals into resentment and rumination. The other leads to clarity, to presence, to strength. And here's the quiet truth. People who rise above don't do so because life is easier for them. They rise because they've trained their minds to focus on what can be done, not just what went wrong. So the next time you're tempted to complain about your job, your partner, your circumstances, or even the weather, pause, breathe, and ask, what would a strong mind choose right now? Because peace doesn't grow in a garden of noise. It grows where the unnecessary is weeded out. And complaining? It's just static, keeping you from hearing the answer that's already waiting in the silence. 2. Comparing yourself, the quiet killer of progress. You're scrolling. Another success story. Another highlight reel. A stranger's voice echoing in your mind. Look how far they've come. And you? It's subtle at first. The feeling that you're behind, that you've missed something, that your life somehow isn't measuring up. And just like that, you're no longer walking your own path. You're chasing someone else's shadow. The Stoics saw this clearly. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus. Because real growth isn't flashy. It's not built for Instagram. It happens slowly, quietly, in the discipline of small choices, in the courage to stay aligned with what truly matters to you. Comparison, though, turns your attention outward. It tells you your worth is negotiable, dependent on applause, attention, approval. It whispers, you are only as valuable as your latest achievement. But here's the truth the Stoics invite us to remember. Your only competition is the person you were yesterday. That's it. Because when you're focused on your own development, your rhythm, your values, your clarity, there's no time to envy. And ironically, that's when you truly begin to move forward. Let's be honest. Comparing is addictive, but what you're comparing isn't even real. You see their victory, not their process. You see their curated life, not their silent struggles. You compare your behind the scenes with someone else's edited highlight. And of course, you feel like you're falling short. But you're not. You're evolving in a direction that's uniquely yours. So instead of asking, how do I measure up to them? Ask, am I growing in the ways that matter to me? Because that is the only scoreboard that counts. And the beautiful part, when you stop comparing, you start appreciating your progress, your path, your quiet resilience, and even theirs, not with insecurity but with respect. You begin to walk lighter, to celebrate others without losing yourself, to live by values, not validation. The Stoics didn't teach self-absorption, they taught self-mastery, and that starts with staying in your lane, with grace, with clarity, and with the calm assurance that your journey is enough. 3. Seeking approval. When you live for applause, you die in silence. There's a trap that doesn't look like a trap. It looks like ambition, like connection, like success. But it's not. It's the silent need to be liked, to be understood, to be seen as good in the eyes of others. And the more you chase it, the more you forget who you are. The Stoics saw this long before social media ever existed. They knew that to tie your identity to public opinion is to hand over your inner peace, to strangers, to trends, to the wind. If you live according to the applause of others, you will die with their silence. Approval feels harmless at first. You say what people want to hear. You fit the mold. You nod, stay quiet, agree, just to avoid friction. But over time, something more dangerous happens. You lose your voice. You betray your values. You become a ghost in your own life. And here's the brutal irony. The more you try to be everything for everyone, the more you become nothing to yourself. The Stoic alternative is clear. Live in alignment, not performance. Let your choices be guided by what's right, not by what's popular. Let your peace come from self-respect, not likes, not praise, not approval that vanishes the moment you disappoint someone's expectations. Because you will. You'll be misunderstood, judged, dismissed. That's the cost of living authentically. But it's also the path to something real. The people who stay, who see you without needing you to edit yourself, those are the ones worth building with. And when you stop needing approval, something powerful happens. You become harder to manipulate, harder to offend, harder to break. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care about the right things. So ask yourself, how much of my life is lived for applause I may never hear? What would I do differently if I didn't need to be liked? Because peace isn't found in being understood by everyone. It's found in standing firm, even if you stand alone. 4. Fear of failure. Let the fall teach you how to rise. Failure. The word alone can make your chest tighten, your mind race. You see it as a verdict, a flaw, a signal that maybe you're not enough. But the Stoics didn't fear failure. They respected it, because to them, failure wasn't the opposite of success. It was the raw material from which success is forged. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Seneca. We live in a culture obsessed with outcomes. You're shown the trophy, not the bruises. The applause, not the lonely nights. And so we begin to believe the lie. If it hurts, we're doing it wrong. But the Stoics knew better. They trained their minds to walk directly into challenge. Not because they enjoyed pain, but because they trusted what pain could reveal. Every time you avoid a risk, not because it's unwise, but because you're afraid to fail, you deny yourself a deeper truth. That growth lives in the attempt, not just in the achievement. And what's worse than failing? Never trying. living with the silent ache of, what if I had? Fear of failure paralyzes. It whispers, what if they laugh? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and still fall? The Stoic answer? So what? So you fall. So you learn. So you rise again, this time stronger, quieter, clearer. Because the truth is, regret weighs more than failure ever will. And if you look closely, every person you admire has failed. Not once, not twice. They've stumbled so often that falling became familiar. But so did getting back up. So shift your question. Not what if I fail, but what will I miss if I never try? That is the question that builds courage. The Stoics taught that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the discipline to act in the face of it. So next time you hear the whisper of fear, don't silence it. Listen, learn, and then move anyway. Because the fall doesn't define you. What you do after does. 5. Holding grudges. Let go not for them, but for you. There's a weight you carry, maybe without even realizing it. It lingers quietly behind your smile, beneath your routines. A grudge, not loud, not obvious, but always there, tightening your chest when their name comes up. A heaviness that follows you like a shadow you forgot was still attached. The Stoics called this out for what it is, a theft, not of justice, but of focus, of peace, of presence. It is not he who reviles you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. Epictetus, you think holding on to the pain protects you, that remembering what they did keeps you strong. But in truth, you're anchoring yourself to a moment that's already over. You're choosing to bleed from a wound that no longer exists, except in your mind. And here's the hardest truth. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength in its highest form. Not because it excuses what happened, but because it declares, this moment will no longer own me. When you cling to a grudge, you stay bound to the person who hurt you. You rehearse the old scene again and again, like a director trapped in a story that no longer serves the audience or the soul. But what do you actually gain from keeping that fire burning? A false sense of control? A momentary feeling of being right? Is that worth the energy it drains daily? The Stoics didn't teach us to forget. They taught us to transform. They knew that peace doesn't come from reliving the past. It comes from releasing it. That doesn't mean approval. It doesn't mean trusting them again. It simply means freeing yourself from carrying what was never meant to be permanent. So ask yourself, what would I feel if I finally let this go? Who could I become without this resentment in my pocket? Because forgiveness isn't something you give to them. It's a quiet gift you give to your own future. A clearing of space, a return of power, a letting go, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. 6. Fear of the future. Come back to the only place that's real. The future. It's always calling, pulling your mind forward into what ifs, what mights, what coulds. It speaks in questions with no answers. What if I lose everything? What if it all falls apart? What if I'm not ready for what's coming? And just like that, you're no longer in your life. You're in a simulation of it. Worry becomes your default. And the present, the only thing that actually exists, is missed moment by moment. The Stoics understood this distortion. They saw the future for what it really is. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Marcus Aurelius, you don't need to solve tomorrow. You need to show up today, fully, clearly, courageously. Worry feels like preparation, but it's not. It's a misuse of imagination. It gives you none of tomorrow's solutions, but all of its suffering in advance. The Stoics practiced a concept called premeditatio malorum, the mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios. Not to panic, but to build calm in the face of uncertainty. Because when you've already imagined the fall, you stop being shocked by it. And in that space, fear loses its power. But there's a difference between preparation and obsession. One sharpens you, the other slowly dismantles your peace. So when your mind drifts again, to what could collapse, to what may never happen, gently bring it back. Ask, what is real right now? What can I influence, touch, or improve today? That's where your strength lives. That's where your life is unfolding. Because the future is a place your body will enter one day. But your mind doesn't have to live there now. The present is the only battlefield where clarity, joy, and power exist. And if you learn to master this space, you'll meet the future not with panic, but with preparation, poise, and peace. 7. Clinging to the past, the locked room you keep returning to. Imagine walking through a vast house, your house. It has many rooms, some filled with light, some still being built. But there's one room, always closed, always cold, always calling. You keep the key. You return often, even when you swear you won't. And every time you open the door, the same air greets you, stale, heavy, unchanged. Inside are old arguments, unfinished endings, moments that hurt too much or meant too much. This is the room of your past, and though it brings you pain, part of you believes keeping it alive gives it meaning, that revisiting the wound honors the weight it once held. But the Stoics would walk into that room with you. They wouldn't rush you. They wouldn't tell you to forget. They would simply ask, what are you carrying that no longer serves the person you're becoming? Because to them, the past is not a prison. It's a teacher. It doesn't define you. It informs you. And if you let it, it transforms you. Epictetus warned us, don't let the force of impression carry you away. Say to it, wait a moment, let me see what you are. That's the Stoic approach to pain. Don't run. Don't relive. Observe. Understand. Release. The truth is, the version of you that was hurt is no longer here. You've changed. You've grown. And by punishing yourself with past regret, you're keeping a ghost alive, one that only steals the present. Forgiveness is key here, but not just for others. You must forgive yourself, not because you didn't make mistakes, but because you're no longer that unaware, unhealed, unfinished person. So ask, what part of me still believes I need this pain to remember who I am? What would happen if I closed the door, not to forget, but to finally move forward? Because healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing not to let it happen again, every time you remember it. And the moment you stop using the past as proof of your pain, you can start using it as proof of your progress. The room will always be there, but one day you'll stop entering it, not because you've forgotten, but because you've learned everything you needed to know. 8. Talking too much, the echo that drowns the voice within. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of a still lake at dawn. No wind, no birds, no ripples, just quiet. Then someone throws a stone. The silence shatters, and the water, once calm, distorts itself into endless ripples. That stone, it's every word we throw without intention. The Stoics believed silence is not absence, it is clarity. And talking too much, it's not expression, it's a leakage. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Epictetus, but we live in an age of noise. Tweets, opinions, explanations, arguments, updates. We've mistaken volume for value. And somewhere along the way, we forgot this. Words are not free. They cost energy, intention, presence. When you speak without thinking, you hand out fragments of your mind to anyone willing to listen or twist them. You give away your focus. You invite misinterpretation. You fill the space that could have held insight with sound that says nothing. The Stoics treated speech like fire, powerful when controlled, destructive when scattered. They understood that the strongest presence is often the one who speaks last, or not at all, because silence is not passivity. It is power refined. It gives space for thought to deepen. It lets others reveal themselves. And most importantly, it allows you to hear your own mind before it becomes someone else's echo. Think of a time when silence protected you. In an argument, in a meeting, in a moment of pain. Didn't that pause, that breath, say more than any reaction could? And now ask yourself, am I speaking to express truth or just to be heard? Do I fill silence out of habit or fear? Because there is nothing louder than a person who doesn't need to prove anything. So let your words be few, but full. Let your pauses be deliberate, not awkward. Let your silence speak, not of retreat, but of command. The world shouts. Let your calm be your volume. 9. Emotional reactivity, the storm you were meant to walk through, not become. Imagine your mind as a ship on open water. Clear skies above, calm currents beneath. But then a storm. It always comes without warning. A sharp word, a broken promise, a sudden shift. You feel it first in the chest, then the throat, then everywhere. And without realizing it, you've handed the wheel to the storm itself. This is emotional reactivity, not feeling, but being possessed by the feeling. You become the thunder, the wave, the strike. And in that instant, you lose the very thing the Stoics trained hardest to protect: control. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Seneca, emotions are not the enemy. They are weather, messengers of inner shifts. But the Stoics believed you were not built to be weathered by storms. You were built to sail through them. The problem isn't that you feel. It's that you let feeling replace thinking, replace clarity, replace choice. True strength begins the moment you stop letting your anger speak for you, your fear decide for you, your pain define you. You pause, you breathe, and in that gap, that sacred gap between trigger and reaction, you find freedom. It's not easy. The storm wants you. It wants your voice raised, your fists clenched, your mind clouded. But emotional mastery doesn't mean suppression. It means navigation. You step back from the chaos within and say, I see you, I hear you, but I will steer this ship. Because every time you react without reflection, you reinforce a version of yourself that is weak, not from lack of feeling, but from lack of command. And every time you respond with awareness, not impulse, you become more than the moment. You become unshakable in the storm, because you no longer are the storm. So the next time the surge rises, don't fight it. Feel it, name it, choose anyway. Because emotional mastery is not about being untouchable. It's about being untouched by what doesn't serve your higher self. And that's the difference between a life steered by wisdom and one tossed endlessly by the winds. 10. Obsession with control, the illusion room you keep locking yourself in. There's a room in the mind. It looks clean, polished, safe, everything in its place, every outcome calculated, every person behaving just as you need them to. This is the control room, and for many, it becomes a second home. Here, you believe if you try hard enough, plan far enough, predict precisely enough, you'll never be blindsided, never hurt again, never fall out of step with how life should be. It's comforting, until it's not, because the control room is an illusion, a perfectly organized prison. No windows, no oxygen, only anxiety disguised as preparation. The Stoics saw through it centuries ago. They understood that what most people call control is just a fear response in formal wear. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Epictetus, let that land. It sounds simple, obvious, but few people live it. Most of us still try to bend the world into compliance, to script the behavior of others, to argue with reality until it snaps. But it never does. The weather won't listen. People will disappoint. Plans will crumble. Markets will crash. And life will keep reminding you, gently at first, then violently. You are not in charge of everything. And that's not defeat. That's the beginning of peace. True control isn't about the world obeying your will. It's about mastering the only thing that ever belonged to you. Your response. You don't control the storm. You control your sail, your stance, your breath, your ability to choose reason over panic, alignment over resistance. So ask yourself, where in my life am I trying to micromanage the unmanageable? What part of me still believes that controlling others will bring me peace? Because the Stoic doesn't fight the wind. He adjusts the sail. She doesn't demand calm seas. She prepares herself to face the waves, with grace, with grit, with stillness beneath the surface. The moment you step out of the control room, you step into life, unscripted, uncertain, unfolding, but finally, yours to respond to with clarity, not panic. 11. Slavery to desires, the puppet strings you forgot you were holding. If your life were an investigation, desire would be the suspect that always slips through. It doesn't wear a mask. It doesn't kick down your door. It walks in dressed as motivation, as ambition, as reward. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because desire doesn't shout. It whispers, just a little more. Once you get this, then you'll finally feel at peace. And so you chase, not blindly but strategically. You chase the raise, the attention, the admiration. You chase comfort, recognition, the next dopamine drop, and you call it living. But the Stoics called it by its real name, enslavement. It is not the man who is too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Seneca, because here's the truth. Desire, when left unexamined, is a leash. It pulls you toward what you think will complete you. But like a mirage, every step closer reveals the horizon has moved. The finish line is always just out of reach. And worse, everyone makes the craving stronger. The Stoics didn't reject pleasure. They rejected dependence. They practiced voluntary discomfort, not because they hated comfort, but because they feared becoming its slave. They slept on the floor, wore simple clothes, ate plain food, not for punishment, but for power. Because once you prove to yourself that you can live without something, you reclaim what the world tries to sell you. Your sufficiency, your inner abundance, your clarity. So pause the chase. Ask yourself, is this thing I want mine? Or was it planted in me by someone else? Does it nourish my soul or just feed my ego? Because desire, when it controls you, blinds you. You forget what you already have. You forget who you already are. But when you choose your desires, when you pursue only what aligns with your highest self, you become something rare. A person who is free in a world built on craving. And that freedom, it's not loud, it's not glamorous, but it is unshakable. 12. Fear of solitude. Learn to sit with yourself before you sit with the world. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? No music, no scrolling, no distractions. Just you, alone, without a screen or a script. Most people can't remember, because silence today feels like a threat. We're taught to avoid it, to fill it, to run from it. We call it boredom, but often it's something deeper, discomfort with our own presence. We keep the world noisy, so we never have to hear what's actually going on inside. The Stoics challenged this head-on. To them, solitude wasn't emptiness. It was a discipline, a tool for self-mastery. A man who is afraid to be alone should be afraid of himself. Seneca, because solitude, true solitude, is a mirror. It shows you your fears, your doubts, your patterns. It reveals the parts of you that have been ignored beneath all the noise. But it also does something else. It reminds you that you don't need the world to tell you who you are, that your thoughts are worth hearing, that your peace isn't dependent on company, that you as you are in stillness are enough. So next time you feel the urge to escape into the next conversation, the next playlist, the next feed, pause, stay, listen. What is your silence trying to tell you? What would happen if you stopped running and simply sat, even for a few minutes, with the person you've always been? Because when you can face yourself in solitude, you stop needing validation in the crowd. You stop chasing distractions just to feel okay. And that's when something beautiful happens. You bring your peace with you, into the world, into your relationships, into your work. You become the calm, instead of looking for it. 13. Avoiding effort. The price of peace is the work you refuse to skip. Everyone wants peace, but few want the process that builds it. They want calm without discipline, growth without discomfort, clarity without reflection, strength without the struggle. But the Stoics knew something most people resist. Peace is not handed to you. It's earned, quietly daily, and through effort that no one else sees. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, faced war, betrayal, and disease. Yet he still rose before dawn to write in his journal, to train his mind before the world could shake it. He understood, if you don't build your inner fortress, the world will break through the walls you never reinforced. Effort is not just about doing. It's about becoming. Becoming the kind of person who doesn't collapse when plans do, who doesn't chase pleasure to escape the pain, who can sit in silence without running, who can face fear, failure, solitude, comparison, and still rise. Because if you've walked this journey with us, through all 13 Stoic practices, you've seen the map. You've seen how complaining weakens, how comparison distorts, how the need for approval enslaves. You've stood at the edge of failure, regret, fear, loneliness, and learned how to meet it not with panic, but with presence. But none of these lessons matter without action, without repetition, without effort. The Stoics didn't promise ease. They promised clarity. They offered a path, one that's hard but healing. And it begins here, in the decision to show up every single day, even when it's boring, difficult, or thankless. Especially then, because peace without effort is fragile. It fades, but peace forged through discipline, that stays. So ask yourself now, what am I postponing, waiting for motivation to do? What would change in my life if I stopped asking for ease and started honoring the process? Because this isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about living like every breath is a decision, like your peace depends on the choices only you can make. And when you live that way long enough, with discipline, with honesty, with grace, peace stops being something you chase. It becomes something you carry. And if this journey spoke to something deep in you, if you felt seen in the silence, if you remembered your strength in the middle of struggle, if a part of you whispered, "This is the life I want to build," then don't stop here. This is just one chapter of 13 Stoic ways, a place where we turn ancient wisdom into a modern path toward clarity, calm, and inner power. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone you know is quietly seeking more. And explore the next video, because the next step isn't out there. It's in you. Peace isn't a destination. It's a decision. And you just made it.